As twilight draped its heavy cloak over the medieval world, the towns fell silent, their bustling markets and raucous taverns hushed under the weight of encroaching night. In this stillness, when honest folk retreated to the warmth of their hearths, a different breed stirred, emerging from the shadows to toil in trades as vital as they were vile. These were the unsung labourers, the grit beneath the cobblestones, whose hands bore the stain of society's unseen burdens. Gong farmers waded through rivers of human refuse, their lanterns flickering like faint stars against the reeking dark. Tanners, shrouded in the acrid haze of their craft, wrestled with hides in vats of festering filth, crafting leather that clad both knight and ploughman. Plague doctors, their beaked masks looming like spectres, drifted through pestilent streets, their presence a grim herald of death's nearness. Executioners, cloaked in hoods and dread, wielded axes with cold precision, severing lives to uphold a fragile order. Miners, swallowed by the earth's unyielding maw, clawed at stone with tools as crude as their fates, chasing veins of metal that fueled empires. Leech collectors, ankle-deep in marshy mires, offered their blood to slimy creatures prized by healers, while rat-catchers hunted vermin through alleys thick with decay, guarding towns from unseen plagues. These figures, bound by necessity to the underbelly of existence, worked where others dared not tread, their lives a tapestry of grit, peril, and quiet heroism. Step into the medieval age, where the air hangs thick with the mingled scents of ripe market stalls, smouldering forges, and the ever-present musk of crowded quarters. Here, in the pulsing heart of a city, teetering between chaos and order, we unearth tales rarely told, stories of those who toiled in darkness to keep the world aloft. Imagine the narrow, twisting alleys, their cobblestones slick with refuse, where no modern contrivance eased the burden of waste. Picture the tanneries, exiled to the city's edge, where the stench of urine and lime clung to the air like a curse. Envision the plague-ridden hamlets, where masked doctors moved like wraiths, their canes probing the sick from a fearful distance. See the gallows in the town square, where crowds gathered, drawn by the macabre theatre of justice, their cheers mingling with the executioner's solemn tread. Feel the suffocating dark of the mines, where each swing of a pick was a gamble against collapse, and the marshes alive with the drone of insects where leech collectors braved bites for meagre coin. These were the realms of the forgotten, where labor was both salvation and damnation, where every task carried the weight of survival. In this world, the gong farmer was no mere cleaner, but a silent sentinel, plunging into cesspits under the cover of night, his shovel scraping against the filth that threatened to choke the city. His work, though scorned, held disease at bay, a thankless act of courage performed in the shadows. The tanner, his hands scarred by chemicals, transformed raw hides into the leather that bound books, shod feet, and armored warriors. Yet he lived as an outcast, his craft's stench a mark of exile. The plague doctor, draped in waxed cloth, stood as a frail bulwark against death, his remedies as much ritual as remedy, his mask a symbol of hope tinged with dread. The executioner, his blade gleaming under the sun, enacted society's will, yet bore its contempt, his life a paradox of power and isolation. Miners, buried in the earth's cold embrace, risked every breath for the metals that drove progress, their lungs choked with dust, their dreams tethered to fleeting glints of ore. Leech collectors, wading through murky waters, traded their blood for the promise of healing, their jars of writhing creatures a lifeline for the sick. Rat-catchers, armed with traps and cunning, waged war on vermin, their quiet victories shielding towns from the plague's insidious creep. These labourers, though shunned, were the sinews of the medieval world, their work the unseen pulse that kept society from unravelling. Their tools were simple: shovels, paddles, axes, picks, traps. Yet each bore the weight of survival, etched with the marks of countless struggles. Their lives were steeped in superstition, where filth was deemed sinful, where the earth's depths held spirits, where leeches carried mystic power. They toiled under the gaze of a society that needed them yet turned away, their existence a mirror to the era's contradictions. The gong farmer, knee-deep in muck, was both guardian and pariah. The tanner, his skin stained by his trade, was both craftsman and outcast. The plague doctor, his mask a shield against fear, was both healer and omen. The executioner, his axe a tool of justice, was both enforcer and exile. The miner, his hammer striking stone, was both provider and prisoner. The leech collector, her legs bloodied by bites, was both healer and victim. The rat catcher, his traps snapping in the dark, was both protector and pariah. Their stories, though cloaked in grime, are woven into the fabric of history, their resilience a testament to the human spirit's unyielding drive. They faced death daily, not with fanfare but with quiet resolve, their labor a bulwark against the chaos of their time. In the medieval city, where filth and glory coexisted, these workers carved out meaning in the margins, their lives a gritty saga of endurance. Their tools, their toil, their very existence spoke of a world where survival demanded sacrifice, where the lowliest tasks bore the greatest weight. As we peer into this shadowed past, we see not just the grime but the tenacity, not just the labor but the legacy. These were the unsung heroes, the keepers of the medieval world's fragile order, their stories echoing through time, urging us to honor the unseen hands that shape our own age. Their lives, though forgotten by many, burn bright in the annals of history, a reminder that even in the darkest corners, humanity's spirit endures, unbowed, unbroken, eternal. As the medieval night unfurled its inky veil over huddled towns, a quiet stirred in the shadows, where the unsung toiled in trades as grim as they were vital. When honest folk sought refuge by their hearths, their dreams untroubled by the city's underbelly, a different breed emerged, their hands steeped in the filth that kept society's pulse beating. These were the gong farmers, the silent sentinels of sanitation, wading through seas of human waste, their lanterns casting frail light against the suffocating dark. Their labor, unseen and scorned, was a bulwark against the creeping tide of disease, a thankless act of courage performed under the cloak of night. Step into the medieval city, where narrow alleys twist like veins through a living beast, where the air hums with the mingled stench of market stalls, overflowing privies, and the sweat of crowded lives. Here, amidst the clamour of a burgeoning age, we unearth a tale rarely whispered, the story of those who plunged into the muck to save towns from drowning in their own refuse. The gong farmer, both guardian and outcast, stands at the heart of this gritty saga, his life a testament to resilience forged in the crucible of necessity, his shovel a quiet rebellion against the chaos of an unwashed world. In the medieval cityscape, where timbered houses leaned close and streets ran thick with waste, there was no modern sewer to bear away the burdens of a swelling populace. The cesspits, crude and overflowing, were the city's dark secret, their contents a festering threat that could choke the life from thriving markets and bustling squares. Into this mire stepped the gong farmer, armed with little more than a wooden shovel, a flickering lantern, and a resolve as unyielding as the stone walls that hemmed him in. By day, he was a ghost, unseen in the sunlit bustle of the streets, his existence barely acknowledged by those who walked above the filth he managed. By night, as the city slumbered, he rose, descending into the suffocating depths of cesspits, knee-deep in a vile stew of human excrement, rainwater and decay. His task was simple, yet colossal, to clear the waste that threatened to engulf the town, to keep the spectre of disease at bay. Each shovelful was a quiet victory, each barrel hauled away a silent prayer for the health of a city that spurned him. The hazards of this trade were as pervasive as the stench that clung to the gong farmer's skin. The cesspits, often dug deep beneath the earth, were treacherous realms where a single misstep could spell doom. During heavy rains, these pits swelled into swamps, their surfaces deceptive, their depths lethal. The air, thick with noxious fumes, burned the lungs and dulled the senses, a silent killer that could claim a man before he knew his fate. Many suffered, their bodies racked by respiratory ailments or infections born of the filth they handled, their health a constant sacrifice to the city's survival. The gong farmer's life was a tightrope walk between duty and danger, where courage was measured not in grand gestures, but in the quiet resolve to descend into the dark night after night. His tools, long-handled shovels, sturdy ropes, wooden barrels, were as basic as they were essential, each bearing the scars of countless battles against neglect and necessity. A broken shovel or a snapped rope could turn labor into calamity, demanding ingenuity to bridge the gap between survival and disaster. Society's gaze upon the gong farmer was a tangled knot of dependence and disdain, a cruel paradox that defined his existence. Though his work spared towns from the ravages of pestilence, he was shunned, his very presence a reminder of the filth lurking beneath the city's polished veneer. The stench that clung to him, as stubborn as sin, marked him as unclean, an outcast in the eyes of those who relied on his labor. He was both vital and vile, a figure respected for his necessity, yet reviled for the taint of his trade. This duality wove a complex thread through the medieval social fabric, where the gong farmer's role was an unwelcome mirror held up to a society that preferred to ignore its darker realities. In the streets, whispers followed him, tales of a man who wrestled with the city's sins, his life a living allegory for the era's uneasy dance with purity and corruption. The gong farmer's work was not merely physical but steeped in the spiritual weight of his time. Medieval beliefs, thick with superstition, cast waste as more than mere refuse. It was a manifestation of sin, a devilish force to be battled in the dark. Some saw the stench as divine retribution, a punishment for humanity's baser instincts, while others viewed the gong farmer's toil as a purgative act, a confrontation with the moral decay that lurked beneath the surface. Caught between guardian and pariah, he faced a spiritual isolation as relentless as the physical, his existence a mirror to the era's fears and ideals. The piles he carted away were more than waste. They were symbols of a society grappling with its own mortality, each shovelful a chapter in a morality tale written in the dark. Yet for all his efforts, the economic rewards were meager, barely enough to sustain a family. His labor, though a linchpin of urban life, brought little wealth, a stark reminder of the medieval world's inequity, where the most essential tasks often garnered the least reward. The tools of the gong farmer's trade were humble, yet they bore the weight of his survival. The long-handled shovel, its blade worn smooth by endless scraping, was his primary weapon, a tool of both labor and defiance. Barrels, rough-hewn and sturdy, carried the city's waste to distant fields, where it might enrich the soil rather than poison the streets. Ropes, thick and coarse, aided his treacherous descents into the pits, their fibers frayed by the strain of countless nights. These simple implements demanded not just strength but cunning, for a broken tool or a misjudged step could spell disaster. The gong farmer's ingenuity was his shield, his ability to adapt and endure a testament to a resilience born of necessity. In the flickering glow of his lantern, he crafted solutions from the raw materials of his trade, turning the city's refuse into a story of survival untold. The gong farmer's life was a solitary one, his nights spent in the company of shadows and stench. Yet within this isolation he found a strange camaraderie with the dark, a silent partnership with the city he served. His work, though hidden, was etched into the bones of the medieval world, his efforts a quiet pulse that kept the streets from choking on their own excess. Legal documents, town ledgers, and social edicts bear witness to his presence, their dry records a silent nod to his necessity. Though individual names have faded, the collective memory of the gong farmer endures, a chapter of resilience inscribed in the margins of history. Each cesspit cleared was a victory, each night survived a testament to a spirit unbowed by the weight of its task. His story, though cloaked in grime, is a beacon of endurance, a reminder that even the lowliest labor can hold a city aloft. As we reflect on the gong farmer's world, we see a timeless struggle, a dance between necessity and rejection that echoes through the ages. His life, lived on the fringes, speaks to the paradox of those who toil in the shadows, essential yet ostracized. The medieval city, with its towering spires and crowded markets, rested on the shoulders of these silent custodians, their work a foundation as vital as stone. Though the outlines of those cities have faded, their spirit lingers, urging us to look to the unseen laborers of our own time, those who carry the weight of society in quiet, uncelebrated resolve. The gong farmer, with his shovel and lantern, stands as a monument to the unsung, his life a gritty ode to the endurance of those who face the dark to keep the world alight. In his story, we find not just the filth of a bygone era, but the strength of the human spirit, a flame that burns through the ages, unquenched, unbroken, eternal. In the medieval world, where leather clad the feet of peasants, armored knights for battle, bound sacred tomes and harnessed the beasts of burden, the tanner's craft was no mere trade, but a vital thread in the tapestry of life. Yet this essential work, steeped in stench and toil, was born in the shadows, far from the bustling heart of towns, where the air grew thick with the rancid perfume of decay. Tanners, those alchemists of hide and filth, stood apart, their hands stained by the very labor that sustained society, their lives a paradox of necessity and exile. Relegated to the fringes where rivers ran brown with their waste, they toiled in solitude, transforming raw, bloodied skins into the supple leather that touched every corner of existence. Their craft, though indispensable, was a curse as much as a calling, marking them as outcasts in a world that could not function without their grimy art. Step into their realm, where the air bites with the acrid tang of urine and lime, where the rhythmic scrape of blade against hide echoes like a somber hymn, and uncover the tale of the tanner, a figure both revered and reviled, whose hands shaped the medieval age from its pungent underbelly. The tanner's day began at dawn, when the world still slumbered, and the first light cast long shadows over the tannery's grim domain. Here, on the outskirts of the city, where the river's edge met the wilderness, their workshops stood, isolated by the overpowering stench that clung to the air like a fog. The process of transforming raw hides, fresh from the butcher, still slick with blood and tufted with fur, into usable leather was no gentle art, but a grueling trial of endurance. It began with soaking the hides in vats of urine and animal feces, a noxious brew that softened the skin and loosened clinging hair. This baptism by filth set tanners apart, their workplaces a malodorous exile from the polished streets of the city. The odor, sharp and unrelenting, seeped into their skin, their clothes, their very lives, marking them as pariahs even as their craft clothed the world. Each hide, heavy and unwieldy, demanded strength to haul and submerge, the tanner's muscles straining under the weight of their task. The air, thick with the fumes of decay, stung the eyes and burned the lungs, a constant reminder of the toll their work exacted. The tools of the tanner's trade were as ancient as they were effective, unchanged for centuries, passed down through generations like sacred relics. Great wooden paddles stirred vats of lime and water, loosening fur in a caustic dance that demanded both precision and patience. Long metal blades, wielded with practiced skill, scraped away hair and fat, each stroke a testament to the tanner's strength and dexterity. The hides, once cleansed, were steeped in tannin-rich solutions drawn from oak bark or alum, a meticulous process that required an alchemist's eye for balance. Too little time in the vats and the leather would remain brittle, too much and it would rot. The tanner's hands, calloused and scarred, bore the marks of this relentless craft, their fingers tracing the texture of hides as if reading the secrets of the earth itself. These tools, simple yet indispensable, were extensions of the tanner's will, each scrape and stir a battle against the raw chaos of nature, each finished hide a victory wrested from the grip of decay. Yet the tanner's labor was not merely physical, it was a dance with the elements, a negotiation with the very forces of life and death. The tannery, often perched by a river to wash away its filth, was no idyllic haven, but a battlefield where nature and human ambition clashed. The runoff from their vats, urine, lime, and organic waste, seeped into the soil, tainting waterways with a noxious brew that poisoned fish and fouled drinking wells. Nearby forests fell to supply the tannin-rich bark, their once lush canopies stripped bare, leaving scars on the landscape that mirrored the tanner's own isolation. This environmental toll, though unintended, cast a long shadow, a reminder that even the most vital crafts bore a cost. The rivers, stained brown by the tanner's work, became silent witnesses to the medieval world's uneasy balance between progress and destruction, their currents carrying the weight of human necessity downstream. Society viewed the tanner with a curious blend of dependence and disdain, a paradox that defined their existence. Their leather was everywhere, shoes trudging through muddy streets, saddles bearing knights into battle, bindings preserving the wisdom of monks. Yet the tanners themselves were shunned, their stench a social barrier as impassable as a castle wall. In many towns they were banished beyond the city limits, their homes clustering near the rivers where their waste could be swept away. The odour clung to them, persistent as a shadow, marking them as undesirable even among those who relied on their craft. This exclusion bred a community among the tanners, a brotherhood forged in the crucible of shared hardship. They passed their knowledge from master to apprentice, a lineage of skill and survival that thrived in the margins. Within these tight-knit circles they found solace, their shared understanding of the craft's harsh demands, binding them closer than blood. To become a tanner was to embrace a life of grueling apprenticeship, a journey that began in youth and stretched across years of malodorous toil. The dangers of the tanner's craft were as constant as the stench that enveloped them. The chemicals they wielded, quicklime to strip hair, urine to soften hides, were not just foul but perilous, burning skin and scarring lungs with every careless moment. Without modern protections, tanners bore the brunt of their trade's hazards, their bodies marked by sores and burns, their breaths shortened by the fumes that filled their workshops. The physical labor was relentless, the lifting and stirring of heavy hides a daily test of endurance. Yet beyond the tangible threats, the tanner faced a deeper peril, the social isolation that clung to them as stubbornly as the smell. Neighbors turned away, markets grew silent at their approach, and even their wealth, hard-earned from a trade that never lacked demand, offered little comfort against the stigma that branded them as unclean. Religion, that ever-present force in the medieval world, cast its own shadow over the tanner's life. The Church, with its doctrines of purity and sin, viewed their work with suspicion, the handling of filth seen as a brush with the profane. Yet tanners found refuge in guilds, those bastions of craft and community, where they claimed patron saints to shield them from divine judgment. Religious festivals offered rare moments of integration, when the tanner could step from the tannery's gloom into the light of communal celebration, their craft momentarily forgotten in the shared rhythm of faith. These fleeting reprieves, filled with music and prayer, reminded them of their humanity, a balm against the daily grind that sought to strip it away. The tanner's legacy, though born in the margins, endures as a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. Their craft laid the foundations for an industry that would evolve with time, their methods echoing in modern tanneries where machines now temper the hazards they once faced. Leather, still prized today, carries the weight of their sacrifice, a bridge between the medieval past and the present's polished surfaces. Their story, etched in the grain of every hide, speaks of a resilience that transcends time, a reminder that even the most reviled labor can shape the world. The tanner, with his stained hands and solitary heart, stands as a monument to the unsung, his life a gritty ode to the endurance of those who toiled in the shadows. In their work, we see the medieval world's complex dance of necessity and rejection, a mirror to our own age, where the unseen hands of labor continue to craft the foundations of society, their stories waiting to be told, their sacrifices woven into the fabric of history. In the shadowed heart of medieval Europe, where death's cold breath swept through crowded towns, a figure emerged from the fog, cloaked in dread and mystery. The plague doctor, his beaked mask a grim silhouette against the flickering torchlight, was no mere healer, but a spectral envoy, straddling the line between hope and despair. Born from the chaos of pandemics like the Black Death, he moved through streets thick with the stench of decay, his presence a haunting omen in a world gripped by fear. His waxed coat, wide-brimmed hat, and herb-stuffed mask were not just tools, but symbols, a fragile armor against the unseen scourge that felled kings and peasants alike. Step into this desolate theatre, where the air hums with the moans of the afflicted, where every corner harbors the spectre of mortality, and uncover the tale of the plague doctor, a figure woven from superstition and desperation, whose steps echoed with the weight of a civilization teetering on the brink. The Black Death, a merciless tide that swept across continents in the 14th century, left Europe trembling, its cities choked with the dead, its healers humbled by a foe they could neither see nor understand. Traditional remedies crumbled under the plague's relentless advance, their failures piling high as the bodies in mass graves. From this quagmire of panic and loss, the plague doctor was forged, a last stand against an enemy that struck without warning. His iconic mask, with its eerie beak stuffed with aromatic herbs, was born of the miasma theory, a misguided belief that disease rode on foul air. These herbs, rosemary, lavender, cloves, were a futile shield against the bacteria that ravaged flesh, yet they offered a fragile comfort, a ritual of defiance in the face of helplessness. The mask, both shield and symbol, transformed the doctor into a macabre figure, his eyes peering through glass lenses like a raven surveying a battlefield. His waxed coat, glistening under the rain, repelled infected fluids, while his broad hat marked him as a quasi-medical authority, a figure both revered and feared. The plague doctor's attire was a chilling alchemy of function and folklore, each element crafted to protect while perpetuating an aura of enigma. The long cane he carried, often tipped with metal, allowed him to probe the sick without touch, a gesture of detachment as much as caution. This tool, like the mask, was a barrier between life and death, a way to navigate the grim dance of his duties without succumbing to the plague's embrace. His movements, deliberate and ghostly, carried him through villages where the air was thick with smoke and sorrow, where every door might conceal a new victim or a fresh grave. To see him was to know the plague had come, his silhouette a grim confirmation of the invisible terror that lurked in every breath. In the eyes of the townsfolk, he was both saviour and harbinger, a paradox wrapped in waxed cloth, his presence a flicker of hope shadowed by the certainty of loss. The plague doctor's methods, rooted in the era's blend of nascent science and deep superstition, were as earnest as they were flawed. In a world ignorant of bacteria, he relied on humoral theories, believing illness stemmed from imbalances in the body's fluids. Bloodletting, with its crude blades and leeches, was a common practice, draining the sick in a desperate bid to restore harmony. These treatments, often more lethal than the plague itself, reflected the era's frantic grasp for answers, a mix of ritual and remedy that offered little but the illusion of control. Beyond treatment, the plague doctor wielded prevention with a heavy hand, enforcing quarantines that sundered families and burned homes to ash in a ruthless bid to halt the disease's spread. His records, meticulous and grim, tallied the dead, each number a silent toll of his failure to stem the tide. Yet his presence alone was a spark of action, a frail bulwark against the chaos that threatened to consume all. To be a plague doctor was to walk a path of profound risk, where every step courted death. Many were drawn to the role, not by choice but by necessity, their meagre pay a poor reward for the perils they faced. Some, driven by altruism or the faint hope of social ascent, embraced the mantle, knowing it might cost them their lives. The psychological toll was immense, their days filled with the groans of the dying, their nights haunted by the faces of those they could not save. Their isolation was not just physical, but spiritual, their role branding them as death's emissaries, feared even by those they sought to help. Communities viewed them with a fraught mix of need and suspicion, their arrival a signal that the plague had taken root, their remedies a gamble between salvation and doom. This paradox defined them, their lives a tightrope, strung between duty and dread, their hearts heavy with the weight of a world unraveling. The plague doctor's relationship with the communities he served was a delicate dance, balanced on the edge of necessity and fear. His mask, both protective and terrifying, cast him as an otherworldly figure, a spectre moving through streets where hope was a fleeting guest. Townsfolk kept their distance, their gratitude tempered by the dread his presence inspired. Yet, in the darkest moments, he was their only shield, a frail bastion against an enemy no one understood. Urban myths swirled around him, tales of dark powers or secret potions, stories born of panic that veiled the harsh truth of his ineffectual craft. These fables, whispered in taverns and by hearths, painted him as both hero and villain, a figure caught in the medieval imagination's fevered grip. His work, though often futile, was a testament to humanity's refusal to surrender, a spark of defiance in a world cloaked in despair. Across Europe, the plague doctor's role shifted with the tides of culture and calamity. In Italy, where the plague first struck, he was a structured figure, often employed by civic authorities to enforce order. In Germany, his practices were rigid, bound by tradition, while in England, opportunists sometimes donned the mask, seeking profit in chaos. Yet, through every variation, he remained a tragic constant, a symbol of salvation that rarely delivered. His meticulous records, though steeped in the era's ignorance, sowed seeds for the future, their tallies and observations a faint foreshadowing of modern epidemiology. The quarantines he enforced, brutal though they were, hinted at a nascent understanding of disease's spread, a flicker of science in a world ruled by superstition. His failures, as much as his efforts, shaped the path to a future where medicine would shed its chilling mask. The plague doctor's legacy endures, woven into the cultural fabric of art and story, his image a timeless monument to resilience in the face of mortality. In paintings and tales he lingers as a stylized figure, his beaked mask a symbol of a time when fear and hope were inseparable. His story speaks to the human spirit's unyielding drive to confront the unknown, to stand against the dark even when the odds are bleak. The plague doctor was no hero in the romantic sense, his remedies often as deadly as the disease, yet his courage, born of necessity and sustained by resolve, burns bright in history's shadowed corners. He was a figure of paradox, a healer cloaked in death's garb, a guardian feared as much as he was needed. His life, lived in the crucible of crisis, reflects the medieval world's uneasy dance with fate, a dance that echoes in our own struggles against nature's unseen forces. As we reflect on the plague doctor's haunting path, we see not just a figure of the past, but a mirror to our own time, where the unseen still threatens, and those who face it often labor in obscurity. His mask, though a relic of a bygone age, reminds us of the fragility of human knowledge, the courage it takes to stand against the unknown. His story, etched in the annals of a plague-ravaged world, is a testament to the endurance of those who walk the line between life and death, their sacrifices a quiet foundation for the progress that followed. The plague doctor, with his cane and mask, stands as a spectral guardian, his legacy a whisper of resilience that carries through the ages, urging us to honor the unsung who braved the dark to keep the world alight. In his grim vigil, we find a truth as eternal as it is unsettling. Even in the shadow of death, humanity's spirit persists, unbowed, unbroken, everlasting. In the shadowed heart of medieval towns, where cobblestones echoed with the clamor of justice and dread, the executioner stood as a figure both essential and accursed, his presence a chilling pulse in the rhythm of order. Cloaked in anonymity, his hood a veil between him and the world, he wielded the tools of death, axe, noose, and pyre, with a precision that turned law into finality. His hands, steady as stone, delivered society's verdict, yet branded him an outcast, feared by those who demanded his grim service. In the public square, where crowds gathered like moths to a flame, his work unfolded as a macabre theatre, a ritual of blood and retribution that held the medieval world in thrall. Step into this somber arena, where the air crackles with the tension of judgment, where the gallows cast long shadows over a society wrestling with its own morality, and uncover the tale of the executioner, a solitary figure whose blade carved both order and isolation into the fabric of history. The executioner's role was no mere occupation, but a mantle heavy with paradox, a calling that bound him to the darkest edges of human justice. His was a trade inherited through bloodlines or thrust upon the desperate men driven by debt or circumstance into a life few would choose. To don the hood was to embrace a solitude as sharp as the axe he wielded, a boundary drawn not just by society's scorn, but by the very nature of his deeds. His home, often set apart on the town's fringes, was a place where whispers faltered, where the air seemed to carry the weight of his grim task. Yet, despite this isolation, his services were indispensable, summoned to enact the will of kings, lords, and magistrates. Each swing of his blade, each knot he tied, was a testament to a society that upheld order through brutality, believing that in the executioner's hands, morality found its final expression. The tools of his trade were as stark as they were symbolic, each imbued with the gravity of his role. The axe, its edge honed to a whisper of steel, demanded mastery to cleave cleanly, lest a botched stroke ignite the crowd's fury. The gallows, sturdy and unyielding, stood as a monument to justice, its ropes coiled with the promise of swift finality. The pyre, with its crackling hunger, consumed heretics in a fiery spectacle, its smoke curling like a prayer for purification. These instruments, though simple, were extensions of the executioner's will, their precision a shield against the chaos of error. A dull blade or a poorly tied knot could transform a ritual into a horror, exposing the executioner to the mob's wrath or, worse, the fate he dealt to others. In his hands, these tools were not just implements, but emblems, each swing and knot a signature of authority, a mark of the law's unyielding reach. On the day of reckoning, the town square pulsed with a strange vitality, a festival of the macabre where the ordinary met the eternal. Crowds gathered, their faces a mosaic of fear, curiosity, and bloodlust, children hoisted aloft to witness the spectacle of a life's end. The executioner, his face hidden, moved with a steely grace, his every gesture a choreography of death. The gallows loomed high, its shadow a stark reminder of consequence, while the execution block gleamed under the sun's unblinking gaze. This was no mere act of violence, but a sanctioned ritual, a public sermon on the wages of sin. The crowd's cheers, mingled with gasps, formed a chorus that underscored the executioner's role as both enforcer and outcast, his work a mirror to a society that craved order, yet recoiled from its cost. The methods of execution varied, each a reflection of the cultural patchwork that defined medieval Europe. In England, the hangman's noose was a common fate, its slow choke a grim lesson for the masses. In France, the sword offered nobility a swifter, more dignified end, its flash a mark of class distinction. Heretics met the flames, their screams entwined with the pyre's roar, a fiery cleansing decreed by the church. Traitors faced quartering, their bodies torn asunder in a brutal pageant of betrayal's price. These techniques, steeped in tradition, were more than punishment. They were stories, each method a narrative of justice shaped by local values and fears. The executioner, as their orchestrator, was both craftsman and pariah, his skill a necessity that branded him with society. In the dim, unyielding depths of the medieval world, where the earth's heart pulsed with hidden riches, the miner descended, a solitary figure bound to the dark embrace of stone and shadow. His journey began with a whispered prayer, a fleeting farewell to the light above, as he stepped into the maw of the mine, where peril and promise intertwined. In an age where metals forged swords, coins, and the tools of progress, the miner was both vital and expendable, his labor the lifeblood of empires, his life a wager against the earth's caprice. With crude picks and flickering lamps, he carved through unyielding rock, Each strike a gamble for survival, each day a dance with death in tunnels that seemed to breathe with menace. Step into this subterranean realm where the air grows stale and heavy, where darkness presses like a living thing, and uncover the tale of the miner, a figure of grit and endurance, whose hands wrested wealth from the earth's reluctant grasp, leaving a legacy etched in stone and sacrifice. The mine was no mere workplace but a crucible, a labyrinth of narrow shafts and jagged walls where the miner toiled in near eternal gloom. His descent was a ritual of courage, inching down slick ladders or swaying in creaking hoists, guided only by the frail glow of a candle or oil lamp. These lights, trembling against the oppressive dark, were his only companions, casting shadows that danced like spectres across the tunnel's rough embrace. The air, thick with dust and the threat of poison gases, turned every breath into a gamble, each inhale a risk of suffocation or explosion. Silica dust, fine as ash, hung like a shroud, settling in lungs and sowing the seeds of lifelong affliction. Choke damp and fire damp, invisible killers known only by their deadly touch, lurked in the shadows, their presence heralded by ghostly blue flames or a sudden stillness in the air. The miner, attuned to the earth's subtle warnings, learned to sense shifts in pressure or temperature, his survival a sixth sense, honed by relentless peril. The tools of the miner's trade were as rugged as the men who wielded them, each implement a testament to a battle waged against unyielding stone. Heavy picks and chisels, their handles worn smooth by calloused hands, struck with deliberate force, coaxing ore from the earth's stubborn veins. These tools, primitive yet indispensable, were extensions of the miner's will, their weight a constant strain on muscles honed by years of toil. Every swing was a calculated risk, every chip of rock a step closer to fortune or disaster. The mine's confines, tight as a coffin, offered no mercy for error. A misplaced strike or a moment's fatigue could summon a cascade of stone, burying dreams and lives alike. Water seeping through cracks turned solid ground to treacherous mud, pooling in chilling floods that sapped strength and threatened to drown the unwary. Primitive pumps, creaking and unreliable, were the miners' frail defense, their failure transforming tunnels into death traps where every step was a battle against the earth's relentless pull. The miner's world was one of ceaseless danger, where the earth itself seemed to conspire against him. Collapsing tunnels, falling rocks, and sudden floods were ever-present threats, each shift a roll of fate's cruel dice. Injuries were common, their scars a map of the miner's life. Broken bones from falling stone, sores festering with dust, lungs choked by the air they breathed. Medical aid, if it existed, was rudimentary, often useless against the trauma of the mine. Yet the miner pressed on, driven by the need to provide for families waiting anxiously above, their hopes pinned on the faint glint of ore. Each day was a choice, to dig deeper into peril or to return empty-handed, the promise of a rich seam just beyond the next strike. This hope, fragile yet unyielding, was the miner's lifeline, a spark that burned through the darkness, fueling dreams of a life beyond the soot-stained existence below. Superstition wove a heavy thread through the miner's world, the mine a realm where reality and myth blurred in the flickering gloom. Tales of restless spirits trapped in collapsed tunnels or drowned in floods circulated as warnings, urging respect for the earth's wrath. Amulets hung from necks, symbols etched into stone, offerings made in quiet barter for safe passage. The miner, surrounded by darkness, saw shadows take form, their weary minds conjuring visions that danced between fear and fantasy. Stories of miraculous finds or daring escapes became law, each retelling a blend of truth and hope, a testament to the miner's defiance of the abyss. The mine, with its endless night, was a place where day and night collapsed into one, where time itself seemed to pause, leaving only the rhythm of pick and shovel to mark the hours. Emerging into daylight, blinking and weary, the miner carried the weight of his toil, his body dusted with the earth's chalky embrace, his spirit tempered by its trials. Society viewed the miner with a mix of necessity and indifference, his labor essential, yet his life cheap. The metals he unearthed, iron, silver, gold, drove the wheels of commerce and war, yet his name rarely graced the annals of the powerful. He was a shadow figure, his existence acknowledged only in the gleam of coin or blade, his sacrifices buried with the dust that coated him. The miner's poverty was a stark contrast to the wealth he drew from the earth, his wages barely enough to sustain the families who waited for his return. This inequity, a hallmark of the medieval world, cast him to the margins, his labor a silent foundation for a society that looked past him. Yet, within the mine's confines, he found a brotherhood, a shared resolve among those who faced the dark together, their camaraderie a shield against the isolation above. The miner's life was one of relentless endurance, his body and spirit forged in the crucible of the earth's depths. Each day demanded not just strength but cunning, a keen awareness of the mine's moods and dangers. The creak of a timber, the drip of water, the flicker of a flame, these were his language, signs to be read with the precision of a scholar. His survival hinged on this intimacy with the earth, a relationship both adversarial and reverent, a dance with a partner as unforgiving as it was bountiful. The miner's dreams, though tempered by hardship, were vivid, each chip of rock holding the promise of transformation, a seam of gold to lift his family from poverty, a find to rewrite his fate. Yet these dreams were cautious, shadowed by the earth's fickle nature, its riches as likely to curse as to bless. The legacy of the miner endures not in grand monuments but in the quiet strength of those who toiled unseen. Historical records, sparse and understated, note their presence in ledgers and chronicles, their contributions a silent pulse in the medieval world's heartbeat. The metals they unearthed shaped economies, armies, and ideas, their labor a cornerstone of progress that went uncelebrated. In folklore, their stories linger, tales of bravery and loss woven into the fabric of communities that mourned their fallen. The miner's life, though harsh, was a testament to the human spirit's refusal to yield, a spark that burned through the darkest tunnels. His tools, his sweat, his very breath were offerings to a world that demanded everything and gave little in return, his existence a gritty ode to endurance. As we delve into the miner's world, we see not just a figure of the past, but a mirror to the unsung laborers of every age. The mine, with its crushing, dark and relentless demands, was a crucible for resilience, a place where hope and despair were forged into something enduring. The miner, with his pick and lamp, stands as a monument to those who faced the unknown, for the sake of others, their sacrifices buried beneath the earth's weight. His story, etched in stone and dust, speaks to the eternal struggle of those who toil in the shadows, their lives a foundation for the world above. In the medieval mine, where light was a fleeting guest, the miner carved a legacy of courage, his hands shaping not just metal, but the very spirit of survival, unbowed, unbroken, everlasting. As the medieval world fades into the mists of time, its shadowed corners linger, whispering tales of those who toiled unseen, their hands weaving the unseen threads that held society aloft. From the gong farmers, knee-deep in filth, to the tanners steeped in stench, the plague doctors cloaked in dread, the executioners wielding justice's blade, and the miners buried in the earth's dark embrace, these figures of grit and sacrifice shaped an era defined by its contradictions. Their stories, though cloaked in grime, pulse with a resilience that echoes through the ages, urging us to peer into the margins where the unsung labored, their lives a testament to the human spirit's unyielding resolve. Step into this tapestry of shadow and struggle, where the leech collectors, rat-catchers, coal-burners, midwives and squires join the chorus, their voices rising from the medieval underbelly to sing of endurance, necessity, and the quiet heroism of those who bore the weight of a world that turned away. In their tales we find not just the past, but a mirror to our own time, a call to honor the silent guardians who still toil in obscurity, their sacrifices the foundation of our present. The leech collector, wading through the marsh's cold embrace, was a figure of paradox, her legs bloodied by the very creatures she harvested for healing. Each step through the mire, each jar filled with writhing leeches, was a quiet offering to a society hungry for cures, yet her labor went unseen, her pain a currency traded for meager coin. The rat-catcher, armed with traps and cunning, prowled the alleys where vermin thrived, his battles against the unseen carriers of plague a silent shield for towns teetering on ruin. His work, though vital, branded him an outcast, his intimacy with filth a mark of both necessity and scorn. The coal burner, lost in the forest's smoky depths, tended fires that transformed wood into the black gold of progress, his life a dance with flame and solitude, his hands stained by the soot of a craft that fueled forges and hearths. The midwife, her hands steady in the dim light of birthing rooms, guided life into being, her wisdom a blend of herb and ritual, her role a sacred bridge between hope and peril. The squire, polishing armor and tending steeds, walked the path to knighthood, his youth tempered by discipline, his dreams of chivalry forged in the crucible of service. These figures, though disparate, were bound by a common thread, the burden of essential labor performed in the shadows. The leech collector's marsh, thick with the drone of insects, was a sanctuary of suffering, each bite a testament to her endurance, each jar a lifeline for the sick. Her work, rooted in the humoral beliefs of the age, powered a medical machine that saw blood as balance, yet her own blood, spilled in the mire, went uncelebrated, her existence a quiet pulse in the medieval world's rhythm. The rat-catcher, his traps snapping in the dark, was a guardian against the plague's insidious creep, his victories unheralded, his life a paradox of necessity and disdain. His knowledge, born of trial and error, was a flicker of science in a world ruled by fear, his role a faint foreshadowing of the pest control that would evolve centuries later. The coal burner, exiled to the forest's edge, mastered the delicate art of fire, his kilns a balance of combustion and restraint, his solitude a mirror to the miner's dark vigil. His charcoal, though vital, marked him as an outsider, his life a whispered tale of survival in the wilderness. The midwife, with her herbal brews and whispered charms, was a beacon in the chaos of childbirth, her hands weaving life from the brink of death. Her knowledge, passed through generations, was a tapestry of folk wisdom and practical skill, yet her role was fraught with risk, each loss a shadow on her reputation, each accusation of witchcraft a blade held to her throat. The squire, his days filled with the clank of steel and the scent of hay, was a dreamer tethered to duty, his path to knighthood a gauntlet of toil and training. His life, lived in the shadow of nights, was a study in loyalty, his aspirations a flame that burned through the grind of service. Together these labourers, leech collector, rat-catcher, coal-burner, midwife, squire, formed the unseen sinews of the medieval world, their work the foundation of a society that rarely paused to acknowledge their worth. Their tools, though simple, were extensions of their will, each bearing the marks of countless struggles. The leech collector's jars, filled with slithering bounty, were her currency, her hands deftly prying creatures from her skin. The rat-catcher's traps, crude yet cunning, snapped with lethal precision, his ferrets nimble allies in the hunt for vermin. The coal-burner's earthen kilns, geometric mounds in the forest's gloom, demanded a vigilance that bordered on the sacred, each spark a potential calamity. The midwife's herbs, gathered from field and forest, were her apothecary, her rituals a shield against the perils of birth. The squire's brushes and blades, used to groom steeds and sharpen swords, were his apprenticeship, each task a step toward honor. These implements, worn by use, were more than tools, they were symbols of resilience, each scrape and stir, a defiance of the hardships that defined their lives. Superstition cast a long shadow over their work, the medieval mind weaving myth into the fabric of their labor. The leech collector, her marsh a realm of mystery, was seen as both healer and outcast, her creatures symbols of life and dread. The rat-catcher, his intimacy with vermin a source of unease, was a figure of folklore, his traps woven with the era's blend of science and sorcery. The coal-burner, his fires burning through the night, was a spirit-touched enigma, his solitude fueling tales of enchantment. The midwife, Her charms whispered in the birthing room, walked a line between medicine and magic, her role sacred yet suspect. The squire, his dreams of chivalry steeped in codes of honor, carried the weight of ideals that transcended the battlefield. These beliefs, though rooted in fear, gave meaning to their toil, their lives a tapestry of faith and fortitude in a world where the divine and the devilish were ever present. The economic rewards for these laborers were scant, their poverty a stark contrast to the value of their work. The leech collector's jars, though prized by healers, brought little wealth, her blood a currency that barely sustained her. The rat-catcher's traps, though vital to public health, earned him only enough to scrape by, his role a reminder of the era's inequity. The coal burner, his charcoal fueling progress, lived on the fringes, his isolation a price paid for his craft's necessity. The midwife, though revered in the moment of birth, faced suspicion and blame, her livelihood precarious despite her skill. The squire, though bound for glory, toiled for years with no promise of knighthood, his labor a gamble on a future that might never come. This disparity, a hallmark of the medieval world, underscored the sacrifice of those who worked in the shadows, their lives a testament to endurance in the face of neglect. Their legacy, though often unwritten, endures in the fabric of history, their contributions a quiet pulse in the medieval world's heartbeat. Town ledgers and chronicles, though sparse, bear witness to their necessity, their names fading but their impact enduring. The leech collector's marshes, the rat-catcher's alleys, the coal burner's forests, the midwife's birthing rooms, the squire's stables. These were the stages of their unsung heroism, their labor a foundation for the progress that followed. In folklore, their stories linger, tales of grit and survival that resonate with modern audiences, reminding us of the human spirit's capacity to endure. The leech collector's resilience, the rat-catcher's cunning, the coal burner's vigilance, the midwife's wisdom, the squire's loyalty. These are threads in a tapestry that stretches across centuries, a testament to those who faced adversity with unyielding resolve. As we close this chapter, we stand in the shadow of these silent guardians, their lives a mirror to the unsung laborers of every age. The medieval world, with its bustling markets and towering cathedrals, rested on their shoulders, their sacrifices the unseen mortar that bound society together. Their stories, though steeped in grime, burn bright with the light of human endurance, urging us to look to the margins where the overlooked still toil. The leech collector, the rat-catcher, the coal burner, the midwife, the squire, they are not just figures of the past, but echoes of the present. Their struggles a call to honor those who bear the weight of necessity in silence. In their hands we see the medieval world's complex weave of hardship and hope, their legacy a flame that burns through time, unquenched, unbroken, eternal.